In this video, we will explore two main questions. What is society? What is art? And what is its true role in society? For some reason, we hardly ever ponder such things, content to leave it to leaders, historical scholars, philosophers, and the like. We say to ourselves, well, if they couldn't come to a consensus, then how can we? Perhaps that last statement should be amended in modern man's view and changed to, if they couldn't come to a consensus, then surely we must. So let's try to understand what society is. How can we do that? First, we should objectively outline and understand the role of society. This role should be understood in relation to the individuals within it and to the biosphere surrounding it. To build an answer, let us first imagine a brief evolutional model of a small primitive society. It's situated in a specific environment. This environment puts specific pressures on it. For example, the danger of predators, changing of the seasons, access to food and water, the potential existence of enemies, and on an individual level, the rest of society itself as a part of his environment. So in this environment, society has goals. The primary goal is to survive and thrive in a common sense. The success of this goal lays the grounds for the main goal, which is the essential mission of being. So imagine the level of technology and culture is zero, and we need to survive in nature. Let's say we live in a seasonal climate. We have spring, summer, autumn, winter. This means that in summer, we must prepare for the environmental pressures of winter. We need shelter from the cold, stored food to last us for this period, fuel for fires, material for clothes, and so on. For this, society divides into groups in order to fulfill these tasks, including groups designated to satisfying current needs. So society becomes a group of productive forces for the common interest. At this level of development, a specific and limited group of professions emerges. We get hunters and fishermen, lumberjacks, teachers, blacksmiths, guards, etc. Everything which is essential to the flourishing of life in this society is produced by its members. This means that there's no need for money. Everyone produces something that is useful to the rest of society and gets what he needs in turn. Here we have to emphasize that this is nothing like individualism, because everyone works for society and society works for everyone in order to survive. This is harmonious living, or true communism. This is not political or ideological. It is nothing more or less than a dictate of nature. This law is objectively justified because one person without the support of society simply cannot survive in nature alone. If you look at it so simply, it's easy to see that the conception of individualism is actually dangerous for society because it takes away from its ability to overcome environmental pressure. Homo sapiens as a species would become extinct. Back to the main topic. Cause and effect. The logical effect of the mentioned causes is the growth of society. When this happens, exchanging goods becomes more complicated and needs to be simplified. Thus, markets appear. Markets provide convenience for producers and consumers, and a common place for the exchange of their goods. However, society keeps growing, and naturally so does the list of goods and the volume of production. So an adjustment needs to be made to keep the exchange of goods simple. A farmer with only cows as currency might find it a little difficult to buy some beans at the market. So you see, the need arises for some kind of token, a symbol of your products. This is money. Throughout history, this token has changed. For example, salt, cowrie shells, wheat and other cereals, precious metals, and gemstones, leather, and so on. So now we have a society that has expanded, whose general cultures and technologies have changed, but not the main tasks. We still need protection from environmental pressure, food, shelter from the cold, etc. So, the productive forces still play the essential role in the thriving of society. A successful society survives, grows, and becomes secure, stable. This stability frees up new elements of production, people, and so we have the birth of new professions which emerge for the purpose of creation and invention. Creativity and inventiveness simplifies the productive process in a myriad of ways, and thus frees up more elements of society. The amount of possible professions expands. Now we have singers, writers, painters, actors, any professional art form. Society's primary goal has been completed. Is this the end? Are we done? No. The way society naturally develops clearly tells us there is something more. Like a healthy childhood leads somewhere, the fulfillment of our primary goals lays the ground for the main one. This must be the collective predestination of mankind, proportionally made up of the individual predestinations within it. Basically, the predestination of each of us is the completed fulfillment of our intrinsically predetermined intellectual and creative potential. The most successful society is the one that frees up all individual elements so they may fulfill their predestination. As one can see, the population itself as a system, let's say, has its own intellect. What does that mean? If time has been freed up because all the needs of society have been covered by the rest of the elements, and then an artist appears with specific talents, maybe completely new to this society, this only happened because of the original success of the initial group of productive forces. So artists in this case don't appear accidentally or without cause. Rather, they are an effect of society's environmental thriving. This means the artist should naturally be thankful and grateful for this free time in which he may hone his talents. And his intrinsic objective drive must quite naturally be to, in some way or another, contribute to society's goals. Another branch which arises as a result of the free time is science. Scientists, inventors, artists, these professions were generated by society's success, and it goes to say that they were generated for a reason, which should clearly be for continued stability, that is, the continued harmony and the future success in freeing more elements of that very society which birthed them. So what are some examples of how these professions serve society? Let's take art. Some of the main tasks of art in all its different forms are to educate, to give a fuller and deeper understanding of the world, inspire further creation, inspire creativity in the reflection and contemplation of primary questions in life, like individual and collective predestination, the meaning of life, death, love, creation, the cosmos, God. The list, like creation itself, continues to evolve and expand. Ideally, and naturally, all art, including movies, should serve society in these ways. Inventors and scientists have a more direct role in the freeing up of elements. In the past, in order to get water and wash clothes, we had to go to the river. Now we have taps and washing machines. In the past we used horses, now we have cars, bikes, planes, even spaceships. This list, of course, goes on and on into the realms of psychology, technology, biology, and so on. All this development happened over many years, and now we have the following. We have 195 countries, each with culturally specific societies, systems, with their own elements and productive forces. We have an extremely well-developed global technosphere, and we have a completely different list of professions compared to the initial example. From this point of view, let's look into the topic of globalization. What is globalization? This is the process of concentrating of the productive forces of all the culturally specific societies of the world. This is an objective process. The ruling of this objective process, however, is subjective and can be carried out using two general conceptions which we will get to a bit later on. Primitive societies lived in isolation from each other, not having any idea of one another's existence. No informational or technological exchanges were possible. Literature, philosophy, culture, technology, scientific discovery, etc. All development of these productive forces and free elements started from this point to where we are now. Now, the entire globe has been mapped. We can travel easily from any point on Earth to another, and we are united by global informational systems, including the World Wide Web. The process of concentrating of productive forces has been completed. We are a globalized society. We are at the point now where the historical success of society in overcoming environmental pressures has led us to a situation where we do not need as many productive forces due to technological advances. Freeing up people. This is the logical aim of any healthy society, as we've seen. With this in mind, a paradoxical question arises. Does our global society really need these elements it has succeeded in freeing up? If we are on the cusp of achieving this primary goal, then why are these free elements largely obsolete? This is a question of conception. Under what conception do we live? Under what conception were we globalized? As we mentioned earlier, there exist only two conceptions. All the others are inscribed within one of them. The first conception of globalization is a primitive one, where people struggle amongst one another in order to climb up hierarchies. This means being part of a slave society. This conception of domination and enslavement expresses itself at every level, be it global, cultural, religious, national, familial, the level of relationships between people, or at the level of the individual. In the second conception, there are no hierarchies. Everyone is equal in human dignity. People work for the common interest, and the common interest works for the people. All individual interests in this conception are inscribed within the common interest in the aforementioned sense, and all the freed up elements are valued. The ruler in both conceptions, generally speaking, is the conception itself. The first conception can come in many forms: ideological, cultural, religious, national, and others, while the main gist remains the same: to enslave. The second conception does not come in different forms, only one. This corresponds to Tolstoy's words: happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. What conception has ruled throughout most of history? And what conception is currently dominant? This is a question for you. If we only look, we can clearly see this first conception expressed in multiple ways through modern art, cinema, literature, music, and other art forms. In this cycle of videos, we will be exploring in much more depth questions on the content of popular modern art. What role do films play in our globalized society? What role does art play? Music? How do these roles correspond with the ideals of the second conception? We look forward to exploring all this and more in this cycle of videos, and to pondering life's primary questions with you all. Thank you for listening. See you next time.